There is nothing, absolutely nothing I hate more than when people bring up goal contributions in conversations about midfielders. And I don't mean like when you mention it as like a side factor or one of the factors. No, I mean when it's the only thing you bring up. It literally grinds my gears. There is way too much that goes into being an elite midfielder to just reduce it to goals and assists. And it annoys me the most, specifically when it comes to Pedri. You look at his standard numbers and okay, they aren't really eye-popping. 4 goals and 2 assists in the league, 2 assists in the Champions League, whatever. That should be the prime example why it will never stop being stupid to just base everything off goal contributions. Because Pedri is having an absolutely insane season, and I don't know how long we're going to have to go over this same topic over and over and over again before people get it. I don't want to turn this into a Jude versus Pedri video because then the comments are just going to turn into El Clasico, so I'm going to keep this part brief. But I'm honestly so tired of this comparison already, not because it's not a valid comparison, but because the people who argue for Jude never use any actual arguments outside the goal contributions. They're barely even playing the same position, and they're for the most part doing 2 entirely different jobs. Even if Pedri's chances weren't being wasted by the big chance missed demons in front of him, I wouldn't expect him to have high goal contribution numbers anyway. I don't understand why people do the goal contribution comparison as if they're strikers or something. I'm going to leave that specific debate alone though. There's arguments to be made, but it's not what this video is really about, and I don't want to get sidetracked. I just wanted to use it to kind of touch on one of the points of this video, the whole stats thing. Anyways, yesterday, Pedri absolutely sauced Valencia. I'm talking about straight buckets. He was out there having a blast. He only ended up with 1 assist, but he was behind 3 of Barcelona's goals, which has been a reoccurring theme throughout this season. The number of goals he's created is way more than the number you're seeing in the assist column, and it's part of why he's been getting so much best midfielder in the world chatter these past few months. It's not just the goals he's created though. In my personal opinion, Pedri is the perfect example of an overall midfield maestro. When I think of the term midfield maestro, my brain automatically splits into 2 general categories. On one hand, you have the ones that specialize in things like shaking off pressure, carrying the ball, dribbling through players, and making things happen with the ball at their feet. These players are the most elite dribblers. You can't really put pressure on them, and it's almost impossible to take it off them unless you jump them with a horde of players. One-on-one, you're almost certainly getting mixed like cake batter. Give them too much space and they're going to drive forward and probably make you look like an idiot if you try to slide in with a challenge. They're perfectly capable of controlling the game if you ask them to, and their skill set is pretty well built for doing that, but they're more likely to be more adventurous and dangerous when they have the ball. On the other hand, you have the players that are in what I like to call the quarterback role. They're more tempo or pace dictators and passing creators. Not as freakish with the ball at their feet as a guy like Iniesta, but just as important, arguably even more important. These are the Chris Pauls, the Steve Nashes, the floor generals, the guys that are going to sit there and pick out passes. They tend to have an elite long ball, and they're usually the most high IQ players on the pitch with the best vision. For years, Xavi thrived in this role with Barca. Whenever they recycled the ball, it would go right back to him, and then boom, he's picking out another pass. They're normally not going to have the super high goal contribution numbers because of how deep they often play, despite the fact that they're often the best passers on the team and the attack runs through them. We'll talk more about them another day because I really want to talk about Pirlo and Alonso too, but that's for another video. I promise we'll get back to them though. They're one of my favorite kinds of players. These 2 types of midfield maestros obviously specialize in a certain area or role, but they do share some traits that overlap. For example, the most elite ones of both are extremely press resistant, but sometimes in different ways. Iniesta would dribble through players trying to jump them and leave them in a confused heap. It was flashy, entertaining, and best of all, it often opened up opportunities for his teammates because of the sheer number of defenders that he attracted and then zigzagged through. Meanwhile, players like Pirlo would just start aura farming in the middle of the pitch. They were way more casual with it, turning away from players hanging over their shoulder, making those slight touches to breeze past the press, those slick little calm moves that really weren't anything insanely flashy, but they were effective and they left opponents looking ridiculous. Being one of the 2 types of midfield maestro doesn't automatically mean it's impossible for you to also be good at the qualities of the other, by the way, just to be clear. It just means that you specialized in a certain lane and there's others that are better than you on the other side of the aisle. Iniesta was still an absolutely elite passer. He just wasn't as good of a passer as Xavi. Same way Xavi could dribble, but he wasn't as quick, skilled, or inventive when it came to dribbling as Iniesta. There's a reason they were a match made in hell. Iniesta was elite at literally almost everything, and anything he even slightly lacked in, Xavi was an all-time great in those categories regardless, so you were pretty much cooked every time you stepped on the pitch against them. Now, when it comes to those two categories of elite midfielders, you can break it down further and get even more specific if you want to start forming subcategories. For example, Busquets obviously fits more in the second type, but he's not really a floor general like Xavi or Pirlo. They more so run the attack. Busquets was the man even further behind them. He won the ball often and evaded pressure with his famous casual turns and pirouettes away from the press before finding his teammates and letting them cook so that he didn't have to bother doing shit else. Basically, there's a shit ton of subgenres in those two types of midfield maestros, but if there was a player that I'd say is the hardest to really place in one of those categories, I'd say it's Zidane. I'll always highly encourage other young people my age to go back and watch full Zidane games. It's the funniest shit ever. Either you're going to waste your time and watch him put up an absolute shitter against Empoli or something, or you're going to watch one of the most ridiculous performances ever against prime AC Milan. The guy was hilarious. He didn't know what to do with himself against Luigi from the pizza store around the corner, but let it be one of the most stacked national teams ever, and suddenly he put him belt to ass. Anyways, in my opinion, Zidane at his best is a very good mix of the two categories. Obviously ridiculous with the ball at his feet, also had a ridiculous first touch, elite at almost everything playmaking wise. I think he would definitely struggle in some of the deep roles that come with the second category though, so I guess I'd say he's closer to the first category. I don't know. Either way, a lot of the most elite midfielders in the history of the sport at least lean one way or the other. It's very clear that Pedri has all the makings of a future all-time great. I don't want to hear none of that, oh, we have to wait and see, don't speak too soon. No, I'm not having that shit, bro. The only thing that could stop him is injuries. He's genuinely ridiculous. I think he's the perfect blend of the two categories. Of course, he gets the Iniesta comparisons very often, and it's easy to see why. The two of them have shockingly similar movements and mannerisms on the pitch, so they are very warranted comparisons. His passing and IQ is also so ridiculous though that it's sometimes led to him having issues with where he should even be on the pitch. I remember back when Xavi was still manager, there were arguments over whether he should play attacking midfielder so his passing ability could be fully maximized closer to goal, or whether they should keep playing him deeper where he was already excelling. I think currently he's found his perfect pocket. He's most definitely not a 10, but he's not really particularly a 6 or an 8 either. Matter of fact, he's kind of doing both. Y'all calling him Iniesta, we need to be calling him Xaviesta, or maybe Inyavi. The point is, he's fucking cracked. Are we ready to say he's the best midfielder in the world right now, finally? Or at least that he's having the best season of any midfielder currently. I don't know if I'd go as far as saying KDB is washed, but he's most definitely not the clear number one anymore, and Rodri's out all season. His main competition right now is really Jude. Maybe Musiala and Barella. Gravenberch is having a ridiculous season, but we do have to be fair and apply the you gotta do it for more than one season rule here when talking about best at a position. Valverde is also up there too. Let me not disrespect. He's one of my favorite current midfielders as well. I can't lie, I'm not mad at the current state of the midfield position in football. Almost all the guys I just mentioned are super young, and I didn't even bring up Odegaard despite the iffy season he's having, or Caicedo or any of the others. There's also plenty others with a lot of potential too. We're kind of set for a good minute. Debates are fun, but make sure to enjoy it too. A lot of these guys are going to be entering all-timer conversations in a few years.